He once admitted that putting his feelings into music was far easier than speaking them out loud. Through songs, he could reveal himself completely more honestly than any conversation ever allowed. For decades, the world believed they understood Willie Nelson. They called him the Buddha of country music, a peaceful soul who drifted above grudges and conflict. But that image, as this story suggests, wasn't the full truth, because at 92, Willie Nelson is no longer just reflecting, he's remembering. And more importantly, he's naming names. Behind the calm voice and weathered guitar lies a man who didn't forget. Not the betrayals, not the insults, and certainly not the moments when music, his sacred ground, was, in his eyes, turned into something hollow. This isn't a story about casual disagreements. It's about 7 artists who, in different ways, crossed a line. Some were rivals, some were friends, and one, perhaps the most painful of all, was like a brother. At the top of this list stands a name that surprises many: Garth Brooks. To millions, Brooks is a hero who revolutionized country music, bringing it to massive stadiums and global audiences. But to Willie, that transformation came at a cost. Long before the lights, pyrotechnics, and arena spectacles, Willie was playing in small venues, carrying the raw, unfiltered spirit of country music wherever he went. When he watched Garth soar above crowds on wires, surrounded by fireworks, he didn't see innovation, he saw something fading: authenticity. To Willie, country music wasn't meant to be polished into perfection. It was supposed to carry scars, to tell stories rooted in real struggle. According to the narrative, after watching one of Garth's performances, Willie quietly remarked to a bandmate, "You can't sell struggle if you've never lived it." That single line captures the heart of the conflict. Not personal hatred, but a deep disagreement about what country music should be. The tension between them reportedly reached a breaking point in 2004 at the Country Music Hall of Fame. On stage, Garth praised Willie, calling him the conscience of country music. The audience saw respect, even admiration. But backstage, the story takes a sharper turn. Willie, calm but direct, is said to have told him, "Next time, sing it like you mean it." It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was enough. From that moment on, Willie reportedly kept his distance. No collaborations, no shared appearances, no public alignment. Then comes Shania Twain, a different kind of disruption. If Garth represented spectacle, Shania represented transformation. Her rise in the late 90s brought a new sound, one that blended country with pop in a way that reached audiences far beyond Nashville. For many, it was a breakthrough. For Willie, it was a warning sign. He wasn't a man drawn to glitter or choreography. He believed country music should feel lived in, not staged. Watching Shania's performances, full of energy and polish, reportedly left him uneasy. He once compared her concerts to Las Vegas shows, visually stunning, but far removed from the roots he valued. When her hits dominated the airwaves, songs that leaned heavily into pop sensibilities, Willie saw not evolution, but dilution. At the CMA Awards, the divide became more visible. Shania walked away with one of the night's biggest honors, while Willie sat quietly in the audience. Cameras caught him applauding, but the story suggests his reaction backstage told a different story. When she approached him, offering a polite greeting, he acknowledged her briefly, then moved on without engaging. To some, it looked like arrogance. To Willie, it was honesty. In his view, she had traded the emotional core of country music for mass appeal. But perhaps the most emotionally charged conflict in this segment is with Waylon Jennings. Unlike the others, this wasn't about artistic direction, it was personal, deeply personal. Willie and Waylon were more than collaborators. They were central figures in the outlaw country movement, bound by shared struggles and a rebellious spirit. They built something together that challenged the industry itself. Yet, as the story goes, success introduced tension. Fame shifted the balance. Headlines began placing Willie's name first, and that subtle change reportedly began to wear on Waylon. What started as small frustrations grew into visible cracks, lateness in the studio, disagreements over credits, and moments of resentment that couldn't be ignored. One night, during a recording session, Waylon allegedly snapped, accusing Willie of being too stoned to perform properly. Willie didn't argue. He didn't escalate. He simply smiled. Quote, "But silence, in this case, didn't mean forgiveness. It meant he remembered." The final fracture came during an interview. In what may have been intended as humor, Waylon referred to Willie as a hippie in cowboy boots who forgot where he came from. The room laughed. Willie didn't. He walked away quietly and, according to the story, never truly came back. Calls stopped. The connection faded, and a partnership that once defined an era dissolved into distance. This segment of the story paints a consistent picture. Willie Nelson as a man guided by principles, authenticity, respect, and emotional truth in music. But it also reveals another side. Someone who, despite his calm image, carries his wounds quietly and chooses distance over confrontation when those lines are crossed. Whether these moments happened exactly as described or have been shaped for dramatic effect, the narrative taps into something compelling: the idea that even the most peaceful figures have boundaries. And when those boundaries are pushed too far, even legends walk away. They never found their way back to each other. When Waylon passed in 2002, Willie didn't stand among the mourners at the funeral. Instead, he sent flowers along with a quiet, handwritten note that simply read, "See you on the road somewhere." To those who understood him, that line carried weight. It wasn't just goodbye. It was an acknowledgement that some wounds don't close, no matter how much time passes. And with that chapter left unresolved, another name rises, one tied not to brotherhood, but to something far more explosive: Toby Keith. Willie Nelson didn't just disagree with Toby. According to the story, he rejected everything Toby came to represent. This wasn't about melodies or lyrics, it was about meaning, pride, politics, the purpose of music itself. Willie once made a remark that echoed through Nashville: "A guitar should never wave a flag." He didn't say Toby's name, but he didn't need to. Everyone knew exactly who he was talking about. Their divide began in the early 2000s, when Toby released Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue. The song became a massive anthem, embraced by many. But to Willie, it crossed a line. He saw it not as expression, but as propaganda. The tension came to a head at a veterans benefit concert in Austin, an event Willie believed was meant to bring people together. He performed with that spirit in mind. But when Toby took the stage, everything shifted. Flags waved. Voices rose. The atmosphere changed from unity to confrontation. Watching from backstage, Willie reportedly felt something snap. When Toby walked off, Willie didn't raise his voice. He didn't make a scene. He simply said, "You're using music to fight, not to heal." Toby laughed and kept walking. In that moment, the distance between them became permanent. Willie would go on to avoid any lineup, any stage, any event connected to Toby Keith. Behind closed doors, he dismissed Toby's image as something hollow, loud on the surface, but empty underneath. Attempts to reconcile were ignored. The silence said everything. Then came Merle Haggard, a name that cut deeper than most. This wasn't rivalry. This was history. Shared roads, shared songs, shared struggles. They helped define outlaw country side by side. But even the strongest bonds can crack. It started subtly, with jokes in interviews, comments suggesting Willie had become more symbol than substance because of his outspoken views. At first, Willie let it slide, until one night, Merle said it again, this time on stage, with Willie just feet away. "Weed's a lazy man's crutch," he joked into the mic, and the crowd laughed. Willie didn't. He finished the performance without a word, walked off stage, and headed straight to the bus. No confrontation, no argument, just distance. And from that night forward, something shifted, quietly, but completely. Behind the scenes, the tension between Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard didn't just fade, it hardened. A joint album they once planned quietly vanished, as if erased from memory. Calls from Merle stopped being returned. Willie's team shut the door. Fans kept hoping for a reunion, but it never came. When Merle finally tried to make peace years later, Willie's response was simple and unshakable. "Some things you don't joke about." By then, it wasn't anger anymore. It was disappointment, the kind that lingers longer than rage. When Merle passed in 2016, Willie honored his legacy, calling him one of the greats. But he never called him a friend. That silence spoke louder than any tribute. Then comes a haunting question. Can one sentence really destroy 40 years of brotherhood? For Willie and Chris Christopherson, the answer was yes. One night at a private fundraiser, after Willie performed a quiet, heartfelt song, Chris, slightly drunk, made a remark to those around him. Willie's turned into more of a mascot than a musician. Some laughed. Willie didn't. He heard it, paused, and walked away without a word. By morning, their planned duet was canceled. Calls went unanswered. When asked later, Willie only said, "Sometimes words don't fade, they stain." Chris tried to apologize, but Willie refused to listen. "You don't get to call me brother after that," he said. And then came Kid Rock, a collaboration that began with curiosity and ended in chaos. Willie arrived ready to make music. Kid Rock arrived ready to make noise. They crossed paths in Nashville around 2008, when Kid Rock was diving into his outlaw country phase. He came to Willie with a bold idea, something rebellious, gritty, and unpredictable. Willie, never afraid to experiment, agreed. But the moment Kid